Master Tavern Keeper's History of the Old World.
So Septimus, are you saying that these Skaven of Clan Rictus and the dragon Skaladrak were in cahoots, as they say in Carcassonne?
Do you mean were they working in alliance?
Well, yes, from a certain point of view, but really, no. They were in alliance, inasmuch as swine are in alliance with the pig farmer. Strolvar put it like this.
Skeggy, a decade earlier.
The Latmen appear to have lived in close proximity to Skaladrak and his lair for a great deal of time. Their nest was extensive and well lived in, by which I mean it was a foul and fetid maze of fell fecundity. It's a shame the Drang Throng, the dwarf army I mean, didn't have one of those new flame cannons that the engineers and alchemists in Karak have just developed. 80 bloody years too late. Skaladrak had no doubt been feeding on the rats, or more likely their gobby slaves, since his arrival. But I'm sure that those rancid rictus rodents felt that this was a fair trade for the protection that having such a beast on their doorstep provided. I've also no doubt that the devious minds of their warlords found ways to manipulate the dragon into attacking their enemies, namely us, the dwarves of Karak Kadrin. But now, with the arrival of the Drang Throng of King Ungrim, their treasured pet was in danger, and now they could no longer hardly stand by.
So, Strolvar, what happened at the battle then?
I wasn't there myself, Manlin. I was still a young beardling. But I heard what happened firsthand. After the battle, a ranger came and summoned me to go to my father. He was dying, but had time yet. His wounds were such that they dare not move him, but he had asked for me. Not just me, though. He wanted a keg of our homemade Norskan Dowie ale, too. I was the only one who knew where it was hidden.
Like the stuff you're brewing in our cellar.
Shh! Not so loud, Manlin. Don't want Goldbeard to hear. That stuff is worth a small fortune. Lancet, I travelled by pony with the ranger, and soon arrived to find my father lying prone near a pyre of burning ratmen. His chest was punctured and covered with clotted blood. His throat was bloody. He'd lost a leg, and his torso was twisted in an unnatural way. His spine seemingly broken. I rushed to his side.
The battle at Skaladrak's lair.
My son, you're here. Praise Grimnir. Open that ale. I'm parched. The finest ale. The Battle of Skaladrak's lair has changed everything for us, son. Things will never be as they once were. So I want you to know all that happened. When we arrived, the blood-stained dragon sat licking its wounds in the center of its lair. Thick, broad stalagmites flanking it, each mirrored by a dripping stalactite above. The ground about was littered with the crushed bones of men, rats, goblins, and dwarves, interspersed with piles of stolen gold and other treasures. Our drunk throng marched up in an orderly fashion and quickly formed a battle line. On the left flank, units of iron breakers supported by miners held the line, quarrelers with their crossbows in their midst. On our right, hammerers and longbeards led units of young warriors, supported by yet more quarrelers. In the center, led by the king himself, were we slayers. I proudly stood by Ungrim with so many of my fellow doom seekers, eager to be at the fore, our breath hot with pent-up fury. Beyond the dragon skulked the Skaven horde. The rats were legion, a forest of halberds, held up by twitching armored claws, stretched across their entire battle line. At the extremity of both flanks, I spied packs of ogre-sized rat beasts, surrounded by undulating masses of giant rats. Each howled, roared, and squeaked, as was their wont. At the army's heart, a Skaven warlord sat upon a gigantic, bloated rat, who is stout, a command to his troops that even we could hear.
They must all die. Bring ruin death and save, keep the Drak. We feast tonight. Dwarf flesh taste good.
But if his intent was to instill some battle fervor in his troops, he failed, and instead it was our noble King Ungrim who so read at his words.
Have at them! Death to the Thagaraki, and death to Skaladrak!
I have been in many battles and seen many fine tactics, Undisciplined maneuverings win many a day. But on this day, there was none of that. There was only gut-born war cries and screaming death as both armies converged on each other with crazed abandon. As the fulcrum of events, the great dragon struck out at all about it in angry confusion. On the side of Skaladrak, ratmen plunged forwards towards our army. Although those that got too close to the dragon found themselves plucked up by its terrible jaws and wolfed down whole. But it was for the dwarves that Skaladrak reserved his strength and fury. It mattered not. We had a plan. As ordered, the two flanks of our army ignored Skaladrak and focused their efforts on the rats. The quarrelers hurled bolt after bolt into the foremost of the Skaven, shearing off the front ranks of their warriors and picking off the packmasters of the ogre-sized rat mutants and their swarms of giant rats that roiled about their feet. This drove their charges into a blind but ferocious panic, which saw them attacking the flanks of the nearby Ratman units. And so it was that the heavy, enraged weapons of Ironbreaker, Longbeard, Hammerer, Miner, and Warrior fell upon the disorganized, spiked armor and three-sided shields of the enemy, splintering and cracking the filthy Thagaraki open like fresh oysters, and spilling their fetid innards in all directions. Bloody rain, hot and fast, filled the air, and we were ankle-deep in gore. The rats fell, and even the warlord was killed by my father's best friend, Snorri, a demon slayer without peer. But all this was peripheral to the real fight. Noble King Ungrim and the other slayers versus the dragon Skaladrak Incarnadine. A cornered beast, fearing for its life is when it is most fearsome and ferocious, and doubly so when it's one of the ancient dragons of our world. A creature older than the gods themselves. We charged, Ungrim and I at the fore, our oaths, forcing us to be first to the fight. Ungrim to fulfill the oath of Balagor, and I to avenge the death of your mother, my dearest Alika, at the jaws of Skaladrak, back in Norska.
For Baragor!
For Alika! And with axe and spirit we attacked. Blade bit down hard on the wounded dragon, though even our Kadrin steel was thwarted by the dragon's scales. But the flesh beneath was still ruptured by the trauma of each blow and bled, blood seeping out like trickles of tears. However, not all scales are equally strong. Ungrim was like a dwarf possessed. Despite his years, he lunged and dodged like a beardling, working his way towards the softer underbelly. But Skaladrak saw him. He knew the weapon the king bore, the axe of Dargo, whose blade had once belonged to Baragor's own great axe, and whose steel had drawn the dragon's blood millennia ago. Skaladrak immediately leered up beyond the reach of the king before hurling the bulk of its body onto Ungrim, crushing the life out of him and many other slayers. I dodged out of the way, although my left leg was not so lucky and was squashed to a pulp by the weight of the dragon's jaw. It didn't matter. The fury was on me. Skaladrak was now within arm's reach, and with a heave of my good leg, I hurled myself at its head and swung Alrika's father's Norscan great axe, Brain Cleaver, towards its forehead. I was lucky. It embedded itself deep in the dragon's skull, piercing its brain pan. It roared a final roar. Then I saw the beast's eyes roll up in its sockets. Death had it in its grasp. Then the impossible happened. Its claw swiped me off its snout. I refused to let go of my axe though, but my blade broke, leaving a big chunk of it in the dragon's skull. I flew through the air, landing here, my back broken and my body ravaged. The dragon, though seemingly dead, its eyes white and its tongue lolling in its mouth, once more reared up, unfurled its damaged wings, and somehow took to the sky, flying off to the southeast, no doubt to the Plain of Bones, for its final rest. Ah, must have closed my eyes for a moment then. When I opened them again, it was night. This night. Great pyre burned, and the carrion of war were feasting on the dead. Snorri was sat at my side. He told me I'd been calling for you, and you'd been sent for. He also said I'd been asking for air. Not long left for me now. I can feel it. The darkness is calling me. Son, listen. The king is dead. His oath unfulfilled. His son will have to take the moniker Ungrim now, but will have no chance to avenge Baragor. For Skaladrak. Skaladrak must be dead. But we need to know. Promise me you'll find the dragon. Go to the plane of bones. Find its skull. Take a tooth to the new king of Karak Kadrin. And then another back to your grandfather in Kraka, Onsmotek. Tell him I'm sorry I couldn't keep his daughter safe. Your mother. Here, take this. Return his axe to him. Give me your hand. Promise me. I know you don't believe me that it was Grimnir himself that took my oath and told me to come to Karak Kadrin to aid Ungrim. But surely the events of this day would not have occurred if they did, if it was not for Grimnir. We owe him. And suddenly my father struggled, grasping my hand tight before finally falling still. There, that's it. Pour us another drink, manling.
And so it was, 50 years after the return of Skaladrak to Peak Pass, that the Dragon Slayer Thorin the Crazed, father of Strolvar the Wanderer, eliminated the threat of the dragon Skaladrak. But what happened next, Master Tavern Keeper? You can't leave Strolvar's tale here. Too right, Heinrich. We demand to know the rest. All right. But in that case, I too am gonna need another drink.